Always remember, the opinion you follow should be your own. Just consider the things stated here to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online.
Happy Friday, Mike.
Happy Friday, Phil, and everybody else out there listening. Excited for another Random Waypoints podcast, as always.
We got a lot to talk about, Mike, so let's get right into it.
Sounds good.
Mike, Jimmy Kimmel is back on the air after Disney suspended him for nearly a week. And he broke down saying it was never his intention to make light of Charlie Kirk's assassination. He thanked supporters on both sides and admitted he didn't agree with Disney's decision. The real question is, do you buy his sincerity, and did Disney make the right call here?
So, I mean, that's a loaded question, as always. I mean, you're good at those. I would say that Disney made the right call, putting him back on the air. I think this is a little bit of a nothing burger. And the reason I think that is because, honestly, and yeah, there's some personal bias involved in this, but, of all of the late night guys, to me, Jimmy Kimmel is weak. Meaning, like, I don't. That just is, maybe it's just myself, but he's boring to me. I just don't see it. I don't think he's that funny. I prefer pretty much everybody over him. So putting him back on the air, to me, I had to laugh because we talk about bias in the media a lot. And I was reading an article from a more left-wing source, and it said, Jimmy Kimmel comes back. It was just stunning, amazing, the response that we got. And, the crowd gave him a standing ovation and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, of course the crowd gave him a standing ovation. They paid to go see him. Like, the crowd is going to be positive no matter what. So that's a given, of course. You got to realize that 23% of the market that they broadcast to did not play him. So because there were two major organizations, Sinclair and the other one, that refused to put him back on the air. So another interesting stat I saw that's also being pushed by more of the liberal community is that he's back and he's stronger than ever because look at his YouTube views are through the ceiling and way higher. Well, of course, there's more people watching him on YouTube because they're not able to see him in that 23% of the market. So, I think that's going to die down over time. He's going to get back to normal. I think he sucked it up a little bit I listened to his entire monologue. I think that it was very carefully scripted to satisfy all of the powers that be. He sort of didn't exactly apologize, but he made it more clear, and he did everything that Disney wanted him to do, I think. And yeah, I don't know. It was just, it wasn't super genuine. I didn't think, I don't know. I mean, that's just my take on the whole thing.
I think that ABC, the only reason why they put him back on is, and you'll probably relate to this better than me, Mike. It's kind of like when restaurants do what I call a soft closing. I don't even know if that's a word.
Yep.
They're going to close. Yep. But then NBC's local affiliate comes in and interviews them and talks about how they're shutting down. And then they get this boost of sales. So they'll stay open like maybe several months beyond when they said they're going to close because they're making money off of closing. Exactly. And that's what I see with ABC. It's like, okay, we'll keep bringing him back as long as these numbers are up. We're making money off of the controversy. But I think once things calm down, you'll see later on, it may be a year from now, he'll get a calm firing. It'll be a quiet firing.
Yeah, exactly. I think because was in the news so much, it brought value to the show, and that brings value to ABC's pockets, and it brings the advertisers, continues to keep them on board. But other than that, you're right. I think he's dying a slow death. I mean, that's the best way I could say it.
And you said it at the beginning. I've never thought he was talented. My first memories of him are with the Adam Carolla used to have some kind of like man show or something like that. It
Yes,
was
him
like
and
a
Adam Carolla.
macho type,
Yep.
and Adam Carolla was funny,
Yes.
but I was
Yeah.
like, he was like the straight guy. You know
Yes.
what I mean? He didn't
Yeah.
have no humor, and
hmm
he's always been called a comedian. I have never watched a Jimmy Kimmel show because I already thought he wasn't funny. So I'm like,
Right.
I don't want to watch a show of him. So,
Yeah, I would say he's the weakest comedian of the late night guys. So some of the other guys were true comedians in the beginning. But like you said, I think Adam Carolla was the one that carried him. He's way funnier.
oh yeah, and like I think Adam Carolla has lost it a little bit, but he did have it.
Yeah.
I've never seen Kimmel have it.
Right. Agreed.
I've never even him, like what's his name that was from Saturday Night Live? Is his name Fallon?
Oh, Jimmy Fallon. Yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy Fallon. Like, I don't think he's extremely funny, but he has funny moments in his
Yes.
shows. I'm always
Yeah.
seeing a highlight that I watch and he's funny. He's
Mhm.
definitely at the bottom. So was Kimmel's emotional defense genuine or just damage control, Mike? Because to me, it sounded like he was saying the bare minimum to live another day.
Yes. And I think that's the best way to describe it. Yeah, he said just enough to live another day. He didn't flat out give any kind of an apology that had been asked for. However, he did everything in his power to, I don't know what you want to call it, smooth the airwaves towards, Erica Kirk and towards that organization, and brought up the fact that he would never wish death or violence on anybody. He said all the little hot talking buttons, but to me it was a little bit too late and a little disingenuous. I think.
I agree 100%. I've had conversations about this Jimmy Kimmel thing with several people, and I irritate everybody I talk to because they can't pin me down to a side because I'm on both sides of this issue.
Yep.
I think he's talentless and he's been kept because of political propaganda that he speaks. But on the flip side, I believe strongly in freedom of speech, and I don't discern or judge or try to pick what's right or wrong. Hey, if they want to pay him millions of dollars and lose money and put him on TV every week, go for it. And you know what? I can continue to do what I've been doing. I've never watched.
Yeah, I'm in complete and total support of putting him on TV for his 12 viewers to watch.
Yeah, because here's my thing, Mike. I'll hear some smart person say periodically what I just said, but it doesn't seem to stick with the masses. You don't have to complain about anything you hear or watch. You can just click away, and there'll be thousands of other choices that fit just what you want.
Yeah, agreed.
So I think that this is just all political theater. There's no substance to it from either side. Both see it as almost like a trampoline or a jumping off point to push their ideologies an inch further.
Well, Phil, think of it this way, and we've talked about this many times on the podcast. Once again, this has everything to do with money and what is going on behind the scenes. And you got to realize that some of these organizations like ABC and Sinclair that's banning them right now, and they've got future mergers that are on the table that have to be approved by the FCC. There's all sorts of, Disney is in control of this, but there's different departments of that company, and so there's a lot of politics and money involved behind the scenes, and I don't think any of it has to really do with with Jimmy Kimmel. He's just a pawn in this, as are, unfortunately, as are all of us as citizens arguing one way or another whether he has the right to be there or whether he said something bad or not. We're all caught in this big thing that's going on behind the scenes, and really it's about money, advertising, and whether or not these organizations can make a buck. So I just
it's just like everybody's giving a big pat on the back on the right to the two affiliates who have decided not to air. But if you dig a little deeper, they are both in the midst of deals to obtain more affiliates.
Yes.
So,
which have to be approved by the Trump administration. So they have more incentive to pander up to them, cozy up to the Trump guys, particularly the FCC chairman. And so this is politics at its height, unfortunately.
Mike, during last week's House hearing, footage was unveiled of an MQ-9 Reaper firing a Hellfire missile at a glowing orb off Yemen back in October 2024. Shockingly, the missile seemed to bounce off the orb, shifting. The orb shifted briefly, shed debris, and then continued on its path. Lawmakers are now demanding answers. Mike, was this a glitch, foreign tech, or something truly unexplained?
One of three things. It was either a glitch, either we shot at something that was, or shot at something else and it re-diverted it towards that because it was something that we're testing, meaning that the orb or something was some kind of defense or offensive tool in our arsenal, or it was an extraterrestrial flying saucer or something. I don't know. I mean, what I do know is, because I heard people talking about this, it's like, oh, maybe possibly somebody came up with a new weapon or a new defense mechanism or something. What I do know is that Yemen and nobody associated with Yemen developed any weapon of that state of the art that our Hellfire missile bounced off of. Okay, so if it was anything that was developed as a defense thing, we probably made it and we shot at our own stuff. So I don't know. I saw that same article though, but I watched the whole video. It who knows what it was.
I kind of agree with you, but that might be the same reason why it was Yemen, Mike. It might have been a flying rock. And
yeah, like Fred Flintstone. The best they could do was a catapult and a gigantic boulder.
So, Mike, I kind of got a different take on this because of something I saw years ago, and I tried to find the footage. I remember seeing on YouTube, because they got all of these military channels that I love to watch.
Yeah, I watch a lot of them too.
And they were showing they would start with a question and then they'd give you the video and the answer. And one of the questions was, what happens when a missile doesn't arm or it doesn't fire off? Mm-hmm. And they showed it hitting something and it kind of was similar to this footage. And I'm wondering, was it just a bad missile and it hit it at an angle, it knocked something off? Because you can't see where it hit it. You're just assuming like it was it might have just tipped something and knocked it off and it didn't explode.
Yeah, it could have been a dart or something.
That's what I think.
Yep.
But I do not dismiss any of the other choices. I don't have an ego so big that I think that we're the only people in the world.
Universe.
Right, in the universe.
Yeah.
See, well, that was ego again. We think our world is everything.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. I'm with you on that. But I'm going to go with, to put this at rest, I'm going to go with that Yemen had a catapult and launched a gigantic boulder. It was a rock.
Mike, Google just admitted it censored content under pressure from the Biden administration during COVID, even when some posts didn't break its own rules. Now, YouTube says it will allow banned accounts to come back if they apply. The big question is this truly a step toward free speech or just big tech trying to clean up its image?
Oh, shock me. I'm so surprised this occurred. Oh, man. I can't even believe that Biden would try to argue with Google to make sure that they didn't post, terrible controversial videos up about not wearing a mask. Because, by the way, that's a lot of this has to do with that. A lot of this had to do with the COVID-19 vaccine propaganda, both directions, and wearing a mask or not wearing a mask or all this other stuff. That it would appear that the Biden administration was infatuated with. And by the way,
Yes.
I mean, we've talked about this before. I don't know why, but I don't know why a red MAGA hat represents somebody on the right and a mask represents somebody on the left. Like, since when does the left own the COVID vaccine / the COVID I'll give you an example. If I'm going to a grocery store and I walk in and I see somebody wearing a mask, if I was at Vegas, I will bet you 95% chance that person is liberal.
I would go with that too.
So that's what my point is that
I'll take it a step further. Not only they are a liberal, they aren't sick. They're not concerned about sick. And it's just all a signal. It's virtue signaling,
which is exactly like wearing a red MAGA hat. It's the same thing. So it's exactly the same thing. So this YouTube thing has a lot to do with the disinformation. And by the way, okay, I'll give you the libertarian perspective on this. Personally, I think that we can choose as citizens for ourselves whether or not we want to choose to follow something, believe in something, or leave it in our lap to go out and do research into any kind of topic. So if there's going to be a video on YouTube telling me that if I don't wear a mask, I'm going to drop dead, or there's a video on YouTube telling me that if I wear a mask, I'm going to be saved, or whatever side you're talking about, fine. I'm okay with all of that. This is a true libertarian perspective, but like, put it out there. To go back to what you were talking about earlier, freedom of speech. Well, I mean, you say it. Who gives a shit? So the point of this whole thing was that Biden administration did not feel secure enough in, I guess, freedom of choice, or secure enough in, they talk a lot about. They don't use the word censoring. I'm going to use the word censoring, but they talk a lot about making sure that there's not a bunch of shit on social media that's going to be harmful to the Americans. Okay, I mean, I'd call that censorship, but and that had a lot to do with this. So I think the Trump administration, and by the way, they are not clean on this either. In this particular case, is pushing their connection with Google and saying, hey, look, Biden did this. We want all this shit repealed. This is bullshit. Particularly, I think, from Trump's perspective, is that the skew was towards the liberal side, meaning that most of the videos and things that were banned had to do with the right and having to basically challenging the mask wearing, the vaccines, the various other things. That's a lot of that has to do with this.
Mike, I don't even understand why they had to make that announcement. It was very clear. Do you remember there was a time that you would not get your YouTube video would get rejected if it had the word COVID-19 one time in it?
So here's a plug. Here's a plug for myself. If you go to my YouTube channel out there right now, go to Drive the Globe. There's a video that I put out from Delaware in the United States in 2020, I guess, or 2021. And it was like COVID. And the title of it was, I had gotten COVID at the time. This was before the vaccine came out. And I had said, well, guess what? That video got banned and taken down for about 6 months. It has still, to this day, has been demonetized, so I can't make any money off of that video. And in fact, my what do you call it? My thumbnail had the what's the the poison symbol on it, kind of like an X or
Oh,
whatever.
the biohazard.
Yeah, the biohazard. Exactly. That's what I'm looking for. Biohazard. So look that up. Go to my YouTube page. You can see that. So I'm living proof that is a true statement, Phil. And all I was talking about in this video was the fact that I got COVID. This was so early in the whole pandemic. I wasn't voicing my opinion on a vaccine because it wasn't even out yet. I wasn't voicing my opinion on masks or no masks or anything. I was just simply stating I got COVID. So,
And
yeah,
there are things where both sides only have an opinion. There's no facts yet on it. And what YouTube was doing was, if you had like a right-leaning opinion, they would have like a little box and they would explain away everything that you said, even though theirs was an opinion also.
Yep. And I got that.
Crazy.
I got that little. There was a box. So when my video did come back, it had a box on the bottom that said, "This potentially is misinformation. This the creator of this is voicing their own opinion." But I was like, "Well, it's not my opinion. I had COVID. I went and got tested. It's a fact." So,
but it's their opinion too.
It's their opinion too, and the difference is that. For a while, I think that social media was consumed and taken over more from the left side than the right side. And I think, and that's just a fact. And then today, I'm going to argue at this point, it's going the other direction. As the pendulum swings, and we see this happen with everything in politics, I think it's swinging the opposite way. And I don't think that's a good thing either, by the way.
Right.
It's swinging more towards the right side. And now suddenly the right, ironically, has shifted roles in some cases. And the right is like the ones doing the censoring and changing the stuff just with the opposite opinion. Well, that's no better. That's the same bullshit.
Well, you just hit it on the head right there, Mike. Each side, when one is in office, they always do whatever you do in office. And the one who's out of office does whatever you always do when you're out of office, which is bitch.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Mike, we've had another tragic shooting this week. This time at an ICE facility in Dallas. A rooftop gunman opened fire, killing one detainee and critically injuring two others before taking his own life. Authorities say he left behind ammunition marked anti-ICE, pointing to political motives. It's part of a troubling rise in targeted attacks on ICE officers and other U.S. institutions. So, my question, Mike, is, do you now see a connection between all these shootings, or are they just random shooters?
Well,
you know, I've been ramming this home for a while now that I see something bigger.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, to the extent that the narrative is being written for them, one could argue that they're working in concert together. Okay, so meaning that they are all following an ideology that is similar, and it's being preached to them. Thus, they are under one big umbrella. They may be acting independently, meaning that they didn't go to a town hall somewhere and sit in an auditorium and be lectured to by the ringleader of this or whoever that is, because there's many ringleaders, obviously. But yeah, I think that to many extent, I think that they're working together from a sense that they have determined, and when I use the word they here loosely, they meaning, in my opinion, the people that are on the wrong side of history have chosen to say that ICE is a bad thing. Now, ICE, let's just cut to the chase here. And ironically, this person opened fire and killed the wrong people, right? So they killed the immigrants in that theory that they're trying to protect, rather than the ICE. There was no law enforcement that was injured in this incident, and obviously they were trying to attack the law enforcement, I would assume, but they are attacking these people for actually doing their job and following the law of the United States that was voted on by the Congress using the power of the full Constitution. We might talk about Constitution later, but using the Constitution of the United States as a framework of this. So nothing here is being done by ICE that's illegal in a sense. So that's my big problem with this is that, look, if you don't like what ICE is doing, in other words, you don't like deporting these poor innocent, in your view, these poor innocent bystander illegal immigrants, then change the law. Change the law. Lobby, vote in new people that are going to vote in Congress to say, look, here's a path to citizenship that's quicker or faster. Or if you're as radical as a lot of these guys, if you run across the border, you automatically become a citizen. I mean, I think there's people that feel that way. So, I heard somebody talking the other day on a podcast that was like, everybody should be able to come to the United States, and if they indeed want to come here, they get citizenship. What? I mean, are you fucking out of your crazy brain? No country in the world does that. And the countries that have had poor immigration policies, by the way, are the ones that are very challenged today and struggling. And by the way, like most developing nations in the world, which people refer to as third world countries or shitholes or banana republics or whatever you want to call them out there, but these countries have serious border control problems, and there's people coming and going. And then I'll use a lot of these countries I've been to: Congo, Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda. That whole area there, as an example, can't control their borders. So what happens when you can't control your border? You get people that infiltrate it from other countries, from other organizations, from other tribes, and you get warfare because they're trying to take over territory. Well, what the hell do you think is going to happen in the United States? Same thing. So you can't have a country without a border. It's just a fact that the definition of a country is we have a border. So, I mean, so your argument that ICE guys are throwing out people that are here against the law, it doesn't make any sense. So, I mean, these officers, I hate to say this. I'm going to compare this. Let me rain on Donald Trump's parade for a second. Because it might sound like I'm all on the right here, but this is not much different than going in and shooting ICE officers is not that much different than Donald Trump blowing up boats in the Caribbean, the drug runner boats. He's taking out a bunch of very low level guys riding on a boat. That are smuggling drugs for somebody else. They're not getting the money. They're not, they're way on the bottom of the totem pole. Well, it's the same thing. You start attacking ICE. You're attacking the guys at the bottom of the totem pole. They're not putting a policy in place.
Right.
I mean, right?
No lies told, Mike. None whatsoever. So, Mike, every time a shooter hits a major institution, investigators rush to the same predictable places: homes, cars, their hangouts. And I'm worried the next evolution will be booby traps set where cops will logically go, or even at the scene itself, to hurt responders and spread terror. Do you buy that attackers will start booby-trapping investigation sites or scenes to multiply harm?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's been a Al Qaeda and a ISIS method of approach in other parts of the world for a long time. So, do I think that's going to happen? Yes, absolutely. I'm actually a little bit surprised at some of these random I'll call them crazy people. What did Jimmy Kimmel call what did he call the guy that shot Charlie Kirk on his monologue? He called him a deranged individual citizen or whatever the hell he used. But I'm a little surprised that none of those guys have set up booby traps because they've worked at that level, right? I mean, they did research, they've acquired guns and ammunition. They went to the effort of engraving sayings on bullets and things like this. I mean, this is nutty stuff, right? So why wouldn't the guy booby trap his apartment? So when the cops finally show up and they blow up or whatever happens, yeah, I'm surprised it hasn't happened.
Well, I introduced it as a question, Mike, but this is me extending my conspiracy theory to you. Uh, so far, my predictions, everything has happened, so I got to have some new predictions.
Yeah, because at this point, I barely call it a conspiracy theory. It's fact.
Thank you, Mike.
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, every time we get on this podcast, every Friday, we go, "Up, here it is again. This is what I was talking about." Yeah, you're right. I can't argue with that.
So, and here's the killer. I want to be wrong on every one of these predictions. Let's
Yep.
be clear. And I
Yep.
want this to be wrong. But I'm telling you, that's what I see next. I see some school shooting or some assassination. They're going to rush to it, and then you're going to hear about that they rushed there and then the house just blew up or something. Or maybe something, because these people are looking for not just the kill, they're looking for the theatrics of it. So I'm scared of the ideas that they have in their head. They'll think of something worse than I've thought of.
Well, I mean, the reality is that most, whether they're international criminal organizations like an ISIS or an Al Qaeda, or they are single things, they're looking for maximum devastation, right? That's what they're all looking for, generally speaking.
But from every time I've listened to like recordings of them where they're talking about it, like with what's his name for 9/11, the tall guy, I can't think of his name.
Osama bin Laden.
Right. They absolutely do what you said first. That is their number one priority. But 1B is that they are interested in it being theater. They want it to be something, if it's caught on tape or video, you're like, whoa. Because not that they didn't really get that many people with the airplane crashes in 9/11. They could have killed far more people somewhere else, but that was the most visual thing to do, was to hit that building. And they weren't even
take out the tallest buildings in New York City.
They didn't think that it was going, because they have the recording of him saying, "I didn't think that it was going to, fall like that."
Correct.
They were just looking for the plane to smack into it and have that visual.
Yep, that's right. And that's the power here of what they're trying to accomplish is fear. I mean, that's more important than the actual, killing part, is the fear part. That's certainly from an Al Qaeda perspective.
Mike, Venezuela has just taken a bold step, approving a strategic partnership agreement with Russia while U.S. warships sit off its shores and President Trump hints at possible strikes. Caracas is now running massive military drills, showing off Russian fighter jets and missiles, and accusing Washington of plotting regime change. The big question is this heading toward open confrontation, or is it just power posturing?
Well, I think Washington is definitely looking for regime change. We are definitely threatening them on purpose. We've been doing this for years. This is not something new under Trump, really. This has been going on for many years. I think that that Venezuela is stomping their feet very similarly to what you would expect out of any banana republic kind of government. They're going to show off a bunch of aging, old piece of shit Russian fighter jets that probably are missing half their parts. I mean, let's be honest. If we really wanted to send something in there, or we would crush them in a matter of minutes. They're not strong, and they're not well supported by their own citizens either. So, and Russia isn't going to help them worth a shit. Russia already showed that. I mean, Russia could sign any agreement they want with Venezuela, but Russia was in an agreement with Iran, and they kind of were like, "Oh yeah, we really like Iran, but we're not doing nothing. We're not helping them." So, I mean, that's a no-brainer.
I think people are looking at Venezuela and all the things that are going on right there. what they're coming up with is logical. They got plenty of oil, other resources, but I agree with that, but I think it's more military strategy for the upcoming possibility of World War III. If you
Yeah.
look at a map and you look at how Venezuela protrudes into the Atlantic Ocean, and how close it is to the Panama Canal, we need Venezuela.
Yes,
It
and
is
which, by the way, from a history lesson, we used to be very, very close friends with Venezuela. By the way, you brought up the Russian fighter jets, but most of Venezuela's army is supplied with United States weapons because we gave them a ton of stuff earlier.
From my
And
understanding, we used to do military, like when you pretend fight with each other.
yeah. Before Chavez, we were very tight. Venezuela used to be the gem of South America. It was a very wealthy country. It was a great place to go on vacation. It was a lot of resorts. We partnered. ExxonMobil went in there, and everything fell apart when Chavez took over and nationalized everything and kicked all the American companies out. Basically, that's what started all this. So this has been a long time coming. This has been going on for 40 years. Do I think we want a regime change? Yes, definitely. And by the way, so does all of their neighbors. So it's not just us. And here's the interesting thing is that people, I've noticed that even the liberal side has largely kept fairly silent on this because they're not in disagreement either. I mean, there really isn't anybody that is going to be big in support of the Venezuelan government right now. Between the fact that they're oppressing their people, that they are largely or one of the main players in the drug industry, that they are obviously violent and allied with everybody that's bad. I mean, if you look at Venezuela, they've got 10 allies in the world, and all of them are no bueno, right? So, no one's going to cry if. I think Trump could. This is another thing. I think Trump has the power to do something with them right now because I don't think there's that many people that are going to speak out.
So, Mike, I got a prediction. We're not done with Central and South America. I believe the next step is we're going to, I don't know exactly what it is, but we're going to enter in some kind of arrangement or conflict or something with Argentina. It's all about that water channel. It's all about that Atlantic Ocean. And even though Venezuela gives us the most strategic location, it would even be better for us to also at the tip of South America to have some kind of military base or agreements for air flights or something with Venezuela. I predict Venezuela being the next targeted country in South America by the United States.
We shall see.
So, Mike, think about this. I really want you to think about something because I was analyzing this. For 2 decades, the United States has been fighting wars. It either quit midstream or they outright lost. And while America bled resources on the battlefield, China has never fired a shot. Yet they managed to win big, dominating economically and expanding its global influence. Mike, is America stuck fighting the wrong battles while China quietly racks up victories without war?
So I think most of the wars that are going on currently are not in the favor of either the U.S. or China, quite frankly. So that's hard to say. That's hard to say. I mean, China has aspirations, to expand their control largely to keep their economy afloat, because they've got some economic problems on the horizon. So that's one of the things that they've got to figure out, particularly if the U.S. and or their allies start minimizing China, and that's, we'll see if that actually happens or not. But like, so that's a fear, I think, of the Chinese. They have to have partners, and we've talked about this on the podcast, whether there's going to be two, quote, global economies. Hard to tell at this point. I don't know, but China's an interesting. They're interesting because I think it's a cultural thing to some extent. I think that they're power hungry in a way, but they're also, and then maybe like I said, maybe it's a cultural thing. They're not super inclined to be militarily violent, and that's an interesting. At least they haven't shown that in many hundreds of years, really. So, I don't know. I don't know. They're hard to gauge right now. Obviously, they have technology. So from modern warfare, that's what you need, right? Technology. So, can I see China going in somewhere and being successful in a militaristic campaign? Yeah, because they get the best drones and stuff in the world. I could definitely see them succeeding somewhere, but I just don't. They've taken a different approach for sure than we have.
I think that different approach has allowed them to not only catch up with us as far as technology and things like that, but it's also put question marks in the minds of a lot of our allies. And that's my biggest worry, is China has reached a point where, whether we agree or not who has the stronger military, I don't think there's a disagreement on them having a major military that we should be concerned about. And all they need is one or two of our major allies, and the tide is turned. So I think that the past couple of decades has been more to their advantage. They haven't wasted military. They haven't wasted money. They've actually been building up their military. Through war, we've destroyed relationships. We've strained relationships with allies, while China hasn't put too much strain on any of their allies. As a matter of fact, all of their allies for the past couple of decades, they've been constantly telling them, we got your back. We'll help you. We'll help subsidize your oil. We'll give you military equipment. So China, to its allies, has looked like a very good friend. We have not looked like a very good friend to a lot of our allies for a long time.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the only thing I would say about the China side, though, is that a lot of their allies are weak countries, meaning that they've got a bunch of things in Africa and Middle East and in various places where they're not super strong. And the second problem is, realistically, where China would want to expand and where their best hope of expanding, quite frankly, is Russia.
Yes.
So, and right now, us and our allies have portrayed that as the major alliance, right? China, Russia. And ironically, that would be probably where China would want to go after first, would be Russia.
Didn't Putin just go visit him again, like last week?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Not for the parade. I mean, after the parade.
Probably,
like a few days ago.
Well, because Putin is desperate, right? He needs help.
He needs money. He needs military equipment. Yeah. So do you think that China is going to give them what they need?
Well, not without getting something in return. And what China generally wants in return is things that, like I said before, help the economy. So whether that's oil or some kind of mineral resources or something like that, they want something. Yeah, they're not going to do it for free.
Mike, all of this to me is interconnected with our Constitution in one way or another. We've discussed our military, we've discussed our law enforcement, we've talked about the courts, immigration, free speech. These are all things that are within the boundaries of the Constitution. Would you agree with that?
I definitely would.
What is happening to the Constitution? And what I mean by that is, Mike, I've read the Constitution many times over my lifetime for different reasons, different times, but I've read it a few times. And it's always discussed as though it's like this document that's written in these crazy terms and only the most literate, scholarly people in the world can decipher what their true meanings are. But when I read it, everything seems very clear to me. And it's like everybody's looking for some gray area to, stick into the Constitution.
Well, let me say this. And if you just stumbled upon our Random Waypoints podcast, welcome aboard. We're going to give you a lesson here in the Constitution of the United States. So, Phil, I think what you're talking about here is the main thing that's going on is I don't think that most Americans, if I asked right now, your average American on the street, if you and I decided to go get off the microphone, go downtown New York City and walk around, and we asked them, what is the American Constitution? I don't think anybody would be able to give us a definitive, very good answer. And I think that's one of the problems. So let's start out with the Constitution of the United States, right? It has basically 7 articles, okay? It's very simple. It has 7 articles of the Constitution, and then there are 27 amendments to the Constitution, of which the amendments, the first 10 of them, are what we call the Bill of Rights. So you could break it into 3 parts: 7 articles, first 10 amendments, second 10 amendments. Now, there are some amendments and some articles that are more, when I say more important than others, are more known than others because they directly affect more people. Let's just say it that way. So I'll give you an example, and sometimes I got to cheat and look at a number, but like if you look at like the Bill of Rights as an example, some of those are important, and then other ones are like more of I don't want to say they're footnotes, but they're definers of some of the other ones. And then obviously the amendments, as you know, there's 27 amendments. There's really only 20. I think there's really only 22 because one was a repealed, right? The 18th Amendment was repealed because it was the banning alcohol, and then there were a couple other ones that were basically superseded by following amendments. So they're not really completely in effect any longer, although they didn't rescind them. They modified them. But in the to look at this as a broad perspective, every single thing about America is in the Constitution, whether it's in the articles or in the amendments. That's it. There isn't anything else. So every single time anybody goes to court, whether it's your local court or your Supreme Court, or Phil, you drive too fast, you get a ticket, you got to show up at court. That is talked about in the Constitution, and it's defined how we handle it, what your rights are to court, who are the people that are trying you, who are the people that have been appointed to make the laws, the fact that you're as equal as I am because we're both citizens and it can't be discriminated against race and sex. All of this is defined already in the Constitution. There isn't anything that's not. So what people don't understand is that we have this argument going on today between, let's just call it the liberals versus the conservatives. Both sides are ignoring the Constitution to large extents. And they're arguing a bunch of stuff that actually was already defined
right
several hundred years ago. It's been backed up a million times. And like you said, Phil, if you read any of the articles or any of the amendments, they're written in plain English. They're not they're not at all hard to read. Like, so I think you and I, off the record, not on the podcast, we're having this conversation last week, and I think we were talking about, in particular, the amendment number 2 which is part of, I quote, the Bill of Rights. So people don't realize the Bill of Rights is part of the Constitution. Amendments 2, which people commonly refer to as the right to bear arms, right? So I'm just focusing on that one. And if I read it, and I have it in front of me, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It's that simple. It was written to protect us as citizens against the government. And that I broadly hear on a daily basis. People misconstrue that to mean that it was we have the right to have guns. That is not exact. That is not what it says.
They try to hang their hats on the word militia, but
Correct.
if you really understood it, forget about what the word militia means.
Yep.
What has the definition of the word militia meant since the inception of this country in
Correct.
America?
That's right.
And a militia was always referenced to some group of people outside the box that are protecting the box.
Correct.
That makes sense. I don't think I said that.
Yes, that's exact. No, that makes total sense. And that's the thing is, so, that's just one example. That's one example I could read. I could read just about any of these amendments, and they're very, very simple.
I agree, bro.
but we've gotten off track, and the reason I'm going to extrapolate here a little bit, Phil. The reason I think you brought this up is because I believe that we're at a crossroads in this. I think the country has reached a point, and I'm going to give you my conspiracy theory here.
Ooh.
And I'm not a conspiracy theorist guy, but I think America has reached the end of the Constitution. And what I mean by that is I think that if you were to take a vote today, if you made every single United States citizen read the entire Constitution front to back and vote it whether they like it or not, I suspect it would not be super popular. I think people are going to find lots of challenges and lots of things that they want to either add, because I think we're in a society right now which is inflationary, right? So to tell somebody that the Constitution consists of 7 articles and 27 amendments, they're like, well, that's it? There's nothing else? No, there's nothing else. There isn't a bunch of little nitpicking, silly details put in this. This is very general. It's a framework that is all-encompassing, which is, by the way, why it was such a miracle that the country has lasted so long, because people always say, well, what happened 250 years ago with guns isn't applicable today. They didn't have guns that could shoot 100 bullets a second. No. That's not what the Constitution says, and it is still relevant today. That's what makes the document so special. The problem is we have reached a crossroads, and I believe that, and here's my conspiracy theory, I don't think either side is necessarily supporting the Constitution. And
right.
although the conservatives preach a constitutionalist attitude, I think that they're largely full of shit. And there's a couple things that are going on right now. I believe that if Donald Trump was not 78 years old or 79 or however old he is, and even though the fact that he is that old, I believe that he is underway of trying to circumvent, change, or abolish the Constitution altogether. And specifically to, I believe it's the 25th Amendment. No, that's maybe 20. I can't remember which one it is. I forgot. I confused the numbers. 22nd Amendment, maybe. Which is the one that talks about the president can only have 2 terms. I think that
the
20th Amendment, yep, says that the president can only have 2 terms. I think we are at a junction here where you actually have a fair amount of more support than you would imagine that may agree with that. And I think this week is a major. So here's my conspiracy theory. One of the things we did not bring up on the podcast yet is that Pete Hegseth has called all of the generals and all of the top military from all over the world to Washington next Tuesday, which, by the way, is unprecedented and historical in the fact that that's never really been done. I think they said the last time it was
we weren't supposed to do that.
Well, Phil, you're right. That brings up a good point. Now we just put every major guy in the same room together. That's a no-brainer. That's stupid. But he's calling them all in there, and people have arguing already. The argument has gone out. Well, what are they up to? Is America going to war? Is he gonna? What is this all about? I'm going to tell you what I think it's about. Mm-hmm. I think they are analyzing who is on Trump's team and who is not on Trump's team, and I think they're doing this well in advance of 2028. And I think that you're creating a scenario because, look, when you want to overthrow or put martial law or ditch the Constitution or whatever you want to call it, and it's been done in other countries, who do you need on your team? You need the military on your team. So if they can get enough Trumpers as generals, game over, guys, game over. And in 2027, when Trump says, we have unprecedented amounts of terrorism going on and this drug war is so bad, we are going to, and he'll spin it any way he does in his Trump fashion, and all the Trump are going to believe him, and he's going to go, we're going to suspend the Constitution right now indefinitely while we fix everything, and we're going to not hold elections because we can't verify that they're going to be any good. And he's going to have military backing to pull this off. And I don't give a shit what the liberals or what AOC or what Gavin Newsom have to say about it. He wins.
Mike, I am feeling good right now because I have been slowly slipping in subject matter and topics, hoping that you saw exactly what you just said. So I don't have nothing to say. I agree with exactly what you said, how you said it. Welcome aboard to the conspiracy train.
let me preface this by saying I do not believe big time in conspiracy theories. And I'm going to say something else. The only thing I could say that is a difficulty in all this is the fact that Donald Trump is almost 80 years old. So if God forbid he was 60 right now, we would be fucked.
We would be constantly hearing the discussion about a third or fourth or no term limit, period.
Correct. But, for him to pull a Putin, I'll call it pulling a Putin, and have J.D. Vance run as the next president and Trump still has the power behind the scenes because, look, he created a new government role for Elon Musk, which, by the way, they're back to being buddies again, too. But he created a government role for Elon Musk. He could certainly create a government role for himself as the grand overseer of the presidency, very similar to what Putin pulled off in Russia. To say that he's going to retain or the MAGA movement or his cohorts are going to retain power I think you're out of your mind if you don't think this is what they're trying to do.
Mike, you have really hit the nail on the head. We are so on the same page right now. People will probably their retort to what you have to say is, yeah, they could get the 4 generals to be in tune with what he said, but the American soldiers, how are they going to get all those American soldiers to carry out.
Because that's how the military works.
And not only that, I literally brought this subject up about following orders. We had a segment called Following Orders where I discussed about the mentality of following orders. And I had other information that I didn't get into about different research that has been done over and over again at different colleges where they've asked people to subjugate other people, to commit violence against them, to inflict pain on them. And it only took a person with position to say, oh no, that's a good thing, or that's the right thing. And they was all with it. Yep. The point I'm getting to is regardless of what sounds logical to the reality is, psychologically, most human beings, if a person who they recognize as a person of power or position over them, they generally just follow orders.
Fall in line.
Mm-hmm.
So, and let me be clear here for those that we've now just lost on our podcast that are like, what are these guys talking about? I'm not suggesting that this is going to necessarily succeed. What I'm suggesting is this is definitely being talked about, being planned, and they're testing the waters, very similar to the dinosaurs testing the fence. They're looking at this. Like, be clear, this is happening. This is not happening. The second piece of that is I'm not saying that a lot of things that they're doing aren't good and that I don't agree. So here's the problem. And I've said this a million times. I'm going to repeat it again. The reason that this is happening and the reason that Donald Trump is in power and the reason that he is now pushing potentially the end of the Constitution is because of Joe Biden and because of Kamala Harris and because of the Democrats. They are the ones that put these guys in power. They're the ones that basically showed America that we're better off under Trump, because the reality is we are better off under Trump because they weren't picking the right people. If the Democrats, from now until 2028, or when they got to pick somebody to run, if they could come up with somebody that can challenge what I'm saying, thank God. But I don't hear that happening. I hear Zoran Mandami and I hear AOC, and all I hear is a bunch of crazy whack jobs. You've got, like, what's her name the other day? Like, if you listened, and I know my liberal friends aren't going to listen to a fucking word I say right now because they just get the blinders on. But if you listen to what's the chick, the one from Somalia that's in Michigan or wherever,
Ilman something.
Yeah, Ilman Omar, whatever her name is. If you read the transcripts of the stuff that she has said in the last 4 months, you are out of your
last 4 months
mind. You are out of your mind if you think that she is protecting the Constitution of the United States of America. You are a sick, demented, fucking twisted, liberal listening idiot.
Mike,
it's hard to say it that way.
4 months. I just don't want our listeners to think that she started doing this 4 months ago. You would go back 14 years.
For all practical purposes, she's infiltrated the United States. She came in as a terrorist, basically. And I use that word. I use that word carefully here because I mean it that way. I don't mean as a terrorist as meaning militaristic or trying to kill anybody or any of that stuff. But she's come in as a terrorist to the culture of the United States. She wants to instill a different set of parameters and define a different society than what is defined in that Constitution that we've been talking about with those 7 articles and those 27 amendments. That is not that's not her playbook. That is not her playbook.
I don't have a problem with that. The problem part that I have is, Mike, if you were to do the exact same thing that you said that she's doing, I have no problem with you doing that. The problem I have is, and I've been consistent on this, is someone whose heritage is outside this border and you've only been here recently, you have affiliations, you have loyalties to other places. I have an issue with those people. I have an issue with you being allowed to be in Congress, to be in the Senate, to be a governor or any kind of major government position where you can affect the flow of American society.
Well, I agree.
Should not even be, I'll stand on this. She should not be able to, Moldami, what's her name that ran for president? Kamala Harris. There was some guy, the election before, where he was actually born in Canada that was running for president. I can't remember who it was.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember his name either.
But I'm strong on that. If you can't show me 150 years of your family being in this country, you should not be up for any of this stuff. And I'm not against you being here. I'm not against you having every citizenship right that every other citizen has. But you should not be infecting our politics with your ideologies. And I think it takes about 150 years for you to get all that out of you.
Well, I agree with you but I'll take it another step. I agree that she has every right to be in the United States. She came here illegally. She's here. I'm fine. I'm fine with her views. She has every right to have all those views. I don't think that she has the right to be a senator and have those views. And I don't think that I'm going to take it a step further. The additional problem with her is that she's not signed on to the Constitution. So that's so that would be a problem if it was you or me, Phil. And we've been here in America for many years. If we are going to run and not follow the Constitution, by definition, if you read the Constitution, by definition, senators, congressmen, Supreme Court, they all have to follow the Constitution. So, but I'm arguing that she's wrong for two reasons. Your reason, and she's simply not following the law. Listen to what she says. Just simply listen to what she says. Don't take it from me. Go listen to all her stuff that she said.
Bro.
She's crazy.
I've literally seen where a person is given like 30 minutes of clips, and they weren't, and some of them were even in other countries, and she was talking another language, and they had to put the titles up. And she ain't never had nothing good to say about America. I'm like, what made you come here?
Right.
And that's a problem I have too. Before we aired, I just saw something where I don't want to mention the person's nationality, but they were talking about the politics, and they were talking about how great their country is. And I'm like, so why are you here? Why are you here if you coming from this great country with this great heritage and ideology and culture? Why are you here? There must be something better about being here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, that's, I'm not going to say anything else about this. And hopefully everybody out there in listening world has not decided now that we're absolutely out of our minds, but we're trying to, well, at least I'm going to speak for myself. I'm trying to prove a point here that this is a lot more serious than people are giving this credit, because we are at my fear about being at a crossroads, particularly with the Constitution, is if the Constitution falls apart, America falls apart. And that's being propagated by both sides. That isn't just a Republican or a Democrat thing. Both sides, in my opinion, are not necessarily upholding the Constitution. They're trying to bend it in all sorts of a myriad of ways for different reasons and in different ways, but they're both trying to bend it. And that's scary. And you can see that in the Supreme Court right now, where Trump was able to nominate enough justices that it's a legitimate question of whether the Supreme Court is remaining neutral or not.
Oh, it ain't neutral at all.
Well, thank you, Phil. And whether or not but if they're not neutral, then by definition, are they going to uphold the Constitution of the United States? And I think the answer to that is no. And if your top court isn't going to uphold it, we're in trouble.
Mike, we've already had them do stuff that was anti-constitutional.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get into each individual one. Maybe we'll have that argument or whatever on another day. But there's already been things that have come up before the Supreme Court where I was like, that goes against the Constitution. So
yeah, because
happening.
So here's this is another thing I want to say about the Constitution. What's nice about it is that you or I can read it, and the Supreme Court justice can read it, and both of us can understand it at the same level. It is not written for rocket scientists. You know what I'm saying? It is written in very plain, very basic English. It's not really that difficult to read.
I agree.
So, it's not a legalese document. You know what I mean? It's not one of those things where you pick up and you go, oh my God, what in the hell is this thing talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So the point of the thing, it's very difficult. And you hear that argument, by the way, that, it's going to be a really difficult decision for them to make because, there's a lot of ambiguity. And no, there is not. That's a bullshit argument.
Thank you.
It's a bullshit argument.
Bro, I'm getting hyped up right now.
Why? Did I come on board the Phil team or something here? We're changing the name, by the way. Next week, it's not Random Waypoints anymore. It's Welcome to Conspiracy Points.
Well, Mike, I almost feel compelled to. First of all, I just want to get my conspiracy theories out. So it's a very selfish reason. The very first one, but the other one is, I don't want to be repeating the same exact thing everybody's saying on the same podcast. I could basically just report the news and just agree or disagree like everybody else, pick a side. I don't want to do that. I want to be a human being that just looks at it the way it is and talk about it.
And which, by the way, and I do this a lot, we bring up other podcasters and we talk about our sort of industry here. Mm-hmm. If you listen to other podcasters, and I highly encourage you to go out to listen to other people, I have found one of the reasons I like to listen to podcasting is because most of the podcasters are very similar to us in a sense that they are giving it from their viewpoint, and they're just looking at it as a black and white situation in front of them, unbiased, unrelated to the government or to the right-wing talking points or the left-wing talking points. Because, I mean, just this week I heard podcasters both on the left and right, including the big ones like Joe Rogan and Alex from Who's Your Daddy, talking about free speech and other stuff. And by the way, they all pretty much agreed. In fact, all of them said basically what we said here today. So there are people that do their research, and there are people out there that are understanding of this. And my fear is that, like everything else, the narrative that comes out from both the mainstream media and from the right-wing conspiracy spinners and the left-wing spinners is all these talking points, and that's what the bulk of Americans listen to. They're not listening to logic or you and I just said, well, we just read the shit. To get ready for the podcast today, I started reading the Constitution, and I was looking through, and in fact, I got notes right over here. I wrote down the numbers because I confuse the numbers all the time, admittedly. And I wrote them down, which each one is. And by the way, when you write them all down, you go, okay, that one deals with religion. That one deals with guns. That one's talking about soldiers taking over homes, search and seizure, due process, speedy trial, jury trial, how to set bail. The very basic things, each one of these things. And when you look at it that way, you get to the end and you go, wow, this is really not very complicated. But then you think of something, well, what in America doesn't fit into one of these scenarios?
So
nothing.
So Mike, let's end this podcast with going through the first 10 amendments.
The Bill of Rights.
Right. Real quickly, just go through the first 10, or I'm sorry, the first 14. Let's just quickly go through. I'll read the statement, and then we'll just briefly say what we think.
I mean, you could just do it where I just did. Number one is religion. I mean, you barely have to read the thing. I mean, it's your right to choose religion.
So,
right? I mean, simple.
Right. So number one is Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
Yep.
Who does that not cover?
Everybody.
It literally, whatever category you want to throw yourself in, it is very quickly told you got the right to say what you want to say.
Exactly.
Nothing else.
And nowhere in there does it say that you have the right to say it without consequences. It does not say that.
Right. And it doesn't differentiate what kind of speech is free speech.
That's right.
The Second Amendment, we already went over that.
Guns.
Right. The third one is no soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law.
And I translate that into English as we're not a military state. You can't soldier. They by the way, they wrote this Constitution because of separating from England, and and that was common for soldiers to come and commandeer people's homes. So that to me, that's just an amendment separating military from private citizens.
The officers used to literally just pick all the nicest houses in a city and just move in.
Yep.
Sometimes they would allow them to stay, and they would actually be like the maid and the servants for their own house.
Yep. That's
crazy. Yep. And just the last part, it says, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. So so it does right there clearly let you know eminent domain can be used.
Correct.
But there's a legal process that you have to go through.
Which, by the way, that legal process you're referring to is covered later on in the Constitution.
Right. Now, number 4 is the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable search and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Now, that's the basis
for all of our, quote, police activity in the United States.
This is often the most quoted amendment that gets people off the hook in law.
Yep.
Because we as a country, we can say all the little negative things we want to say about law enforcement in the country, but our country has the most protections against the law being used against you.
Yep.
And it's very clear. And we did enough, Mike. We did 4. I just wanted to make the point. There ain't no room for no interpretation in these things.
Well, you also just made a point. The Constitution is largely written to protect the citizens against the government.
It says that in the first few sentences.
Exactly. So, I mean, just so you know, that's what it's for. So the irony of that is that because you've got both sides at this point kind of throwing it to the side, that's a scary thing. That is not in our advantage as Americans, as citizens. That's the scary part.
Well, hopefully me and you, Mike, will live long enough to see what happens or what doesn't happen.
Well, I don't know. I keep looking out the window here because I'm a little afraid, saying some of the things I might have said on the podcast today. Everybody hates me now.
Oh, I've gotten, nobody's been like stern with me. They've been more like talking to me like a child. like they are explaining something to me that I don't see clearly.
Right.
Oh, what?
I've gotten that.
That's
Mike, do you know you got to be careful when you say that and this because, I've already thought of that.
and I don't mind some people. I really get the idea that, oh, they're concerned about me. But then almost the other half, it's like, okay, this is your passive aggressive way of making your point to me.
Right.
You're opposed to what I have to say, and you can't just say that. So you going around the corner, around the block to make that point and scare me, or think you gonna scare me.
So hopefully more of you write in and talk to us because we want to know your viewpoints too. It's not just about what we're saying. I'd like to believe that we are doing a decent job of gathering the viewpoints from a bunch of different sides and presenting them here, but I would love to hear from a bunch of listeners as to what your viewpoint is, and tell us what you disagree with us on, because I'd love to talk about that.
And just for new listeners or people who just didn't know,
Or found us by accident, God forbid.
A majority of the topics that we discuss, somebody told us to bring them up. Somebody has brought. We're not just like venting. We are, just like you said, we're kind of giving you a synopsis of what we're hearing.
Yeah, and the Constitution thing, just as an add-on to what you just said, Phil, has been brought up by a number of listeners over the last 6 months, and that is interesting. I think in itself is that I've heard more and more people referring back to that because I think we're not the only ones that have stumbled upon the fact that that is under attack right now. And I think that it's starting to even hit some mainstream media at this point. Obviously, we spent the better part of the last 2 weeks talking about free speech, which is all part of that. But I think more and more people are becoming concerned with that, and that's a scary thing.
I agree with that. And what I'm about to say, I don't have any statistics or facts to back it. This is just something I think or feel, however you want to word it. The reason I feel like we are more susceptible to the loss of the Constitution or the revamping in a negative way of the Constitution now more than at any other time. And the main reason is I don't think, and like I said, this is my thought. I don't have any facts. I would venture to say that at no time in the history of the United States has there been so few people who know the Constitution.
I would agree. I think there's two things going on there. One is that our education system is lacking and not focused on some of this because there's way too much influence work going on from both sides to try to influence our children, number one. And number two, I do think because of the immigration issue and the rate at which people are immigrating and maybe we're not doing a good job at education from people coming in, I don't think they're learning it well either. And I just think that it's being lost.
And Benjamin Franklin he ruined two things for America. He ruined the Constitution and and he ruined the Bible.
Yep.
So I'll start with the Bible. Mike, we've talked about it times. I've literally gone to theological school. I so often hear people quote the Bible, and it'll be something that's from the Farmer's Almanac. It is not from the Bible.
Yep.
And the same thing with the Constitution. I will hear somebody say, this is in the Constitution, that's in the Constitution. And I'm like, wait a minute, isn't that a quote from the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin?
Yep.
The point that I'm getting to is, it's gotten to the point where you'll have a person standing in front of you and they are adamant about their knowledge of the Constitution. They're adamant about their position. And then they'll quote something that ain't from nowhere near the Constitution.
Exactly. And that you saw that during our election cycle. People were talking about all sorts of issues, and they were quoting the Constitution in it, and the Constitution does not directly address any of those issues.
Right.
I mean, it just doesn't. Those all issues are addressed indirectly. However, they're talking like it's written in the Constitution. I'm like, no, it's not.
I worked for, I won't say the name, but it was a Fortune 100 company. And I also worked for other companies that are Fortune 500 companies. And they all had one thing similar put in place. Before you could ever get your cubicle or your office or whatever the case may be, you had to read like a little manual, sometimes a book, and the first few pages, I can't think of the word now, but it's basically like the Constitution for
all the companies had a mission statement, right?
Mission statement.
Yeah,
and
the same thing.
The Constitution is our mission statement. And
Correct.
Just like on a job, you might know the technical skills necessary to do your job, but you can't perform your job 100% if you don't know what the mission of the company is.
That's right.
And this company, and that's what the government is, if you look at it from just logistics, statistics, and things like that. It is absolutely a business. It cannot run successfully if its employees, that's us, because we pay the taxes.
Yep.
If we don't know the mission statement to follow, and it's not a lot of thoughts that people have are instituted at a young age. If we went back to pressuring education to make a big thing about you must learn the Constitution, I think a lot of stuff would be eradicated in about 10 years as those kids grow up and graduate. Because we got a bunch of stupid kids with ideas and they're not even related to anything concrete.
Yeah, you're right.
Mike, you got anything else you want to say?
Oh, wow. Huh. Next week, we're going to read the Declaration of Independence.
Mike, I felt like we had to address it.
We definitely do. I don't think enough people are talking about it.
I know that you know the Constitution. So we could have had this conversation without quoting anything, without mentioning the numbers or whatever. But the point was, I want other people to maybe be like, okay, let me pick it up again. Because some people, it's just they done forgot. It's been so long. Yeah. I want people to pick up the Constitution. That's our mission statement, and then apply it to everything that you're talking about in politics now.
Exactly. And if you do that, you're gonna know we're in big trouble.
Anything else, Mike?
That's it, Phil.
All right, guys, you know what I'm going to say. Stay safe, tread lightly, and hopefully we'll see you here or on the trail soon.
You have been listening to Waypoint Overland's Random Waypoints. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.